Well, Washington, D.C. is a city of symbols. So it is immensely important that there be a National Women's History Museum here, along with all of our other national museums, that will say that our country honors our women. Only 1 out of 10 figures is of a woman. Less than 5% of our national statues in our national parks is of a woman leader. So women are essentially left out of the telling of our national story. It's very important that there be a way for us to say we honor the things that women have done to build this nation, women who have contributed to our nation in various ways. In every aspect of our life, women have contributed and made significant contributions. So it's immensely important that we have a place here in Washington to recognize that.
How did the idea for the museum come about? And how long has it been in the works? And when are we going to see the building?
Not soon enough. Karen Stacer is our founder. She had a passion for women's history. She moved here from Alaska, and she was on the National Mall one day with her mother, showing her mother the national museums like we all do when tourists come in town. And she said, "What would I want to see most?" And it was a National Women's History Museum. So from that, she started looking to see, surely there was one in the works, and there was not. And so she started the movement. Now, this was in 1995. So the museum incorporated in 1996, and we've been working on growing the museum, growing the internal structure, and working to identify a building site since that time. Well, right now we have an online museum, which one can find at nwhm.org, and we have a number 19 online exhibits about various aspects of women's history. We have 300 biographies. We have lesson plans for educators. So there's a wealth of information online right now. But should our legislation pass this year in 2011, then it will be 5 to 7 years before the door is open on the museum. The legislation that will be reintroduced was introduced last session of Congress. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney from New York introduced the House bill, and Senator Susan Collins from Maine introduced the Senate bill. We had the House bill pass on unanimous consent, and the Senate bill passed out of committee on unanimous consent. And right at the tail end of the session, there were 2 male senators who placed a hold on the bill. That legislation is being reintroduced by both Representative Maloney in the House and Senator Collins in the Senate. And because we did have such strong support last session, many of the members of Congress will just come back on quickly as far as being a co-sponsor on the bill. And so there is some hope that getting this moving early in this session of Congress, that Senator Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, will have some time to work this through on the Senate floor. That's essentially what happened last session. He ran out of time, and there were so many things that were pressing at the end of that session. So now that there's a little bit of breathing room at the beginning of this session, then he can take the time to work the bill through the Senate floor. And the legislation provides that we will purchase at fair market value a site that is located at 12th Street and Independence Avenue Southwest in Washington. That Independence is the street that borders the National Mall, and so we would be directly across the street from the National Mall. It's, for those who know Washington, it's directly across the street from the Freer Gallery and the Smithsonian Castle. So it's a great, great location. And then after we purchase the site, then we will raise privately funds to build the museum.
Has it been determined yet how much private funds are needed?
We have worked with real estate and developers and architects and that type of thing, and right now it's all back at the envelope, but around 400 million, which it sounds like an enormous amount, which it is, and especially since we're raising it privately, it's all the more enormous. But at the same time, when it's what does a museum cost here in Washington, that's about the going rate. So
What will physically then go into the building?
well, that's a very good question. We're focused on American women's history, and we always say that that's in the context of world history. The world is becoming so much smaller, and we focus so much on in our nation about women's plight around the world. So we want to make that relevant to what's going on with this museum. It will be part of the program, but we're just beginning to work with scholars of women's history to determine what will be in the permanent exhibits in the museum, what will be in the temporary exhibits, what are the central core factors that this museum will be organized around. We're just beginning to start to work through that with these scholars, and it will be a fascinating process. So much of women's history is missing that it just constantly amazes me as to the stories we come across, or the way that people are inspired by learning women's history. Our project manager, Judy Renfrew, who's helping us determine how we will approach the site and help us go through that thought process. She has an 8-year-old daughter who, during the last Democratic primary between Obama and Hillary Clinton, Judy overheard her 8-year-old daughter say, "Hillary Clinton can't be president, it's against the law." And so Judy, stunned, took her daughter aside and said, "Why would you say such a thing?" And her daughter said, 8 years old, in her wisdom, said, "If a woman could be president, we would have had one by now."
Wow, that's powerful.
It speaks to that young girls need to know their history. And right now, by 8 years old, she had looked around and seen that women were missing. So that's what we have to change.
How can members of NFPW support this?
Well, they can continue to write about the importance of a museum like this. One of our most wonderful exhibits online is the one that we partnered with Press Women, and it's called Women in Journalism, and it is just one of our most popular exhibits, and it's so informative. What these women did as journalists, as editors, as publishers is just remarkable, and has really changed the course of our nation's history. So that's what I'm sure they will continue to do, and if they can make us part of stories that they write when they're talking about women and the need for our young women to learn about what women have done to change this nation, would be a wonderful contribution.